All right. It is such a pleasure to welcome you here tonight on behalf of Refugees International. I'm Jeremy Konyndyk. I'm the president of the organization. Have the privilege of leading this amazing organization, which tonight is marking the 45th anniversary since our founding in 1979. I hope that you have had a chance to look at some of the beautiful photos that we have organized around the room here. I talked to several of you tonight about the history of the organization, questions that you've had. You can see a lot of that history in the stand-up posters and photos that we have there, and a history of impact and some really amazing moments throughout the 45 years that we've been working as an organization. Before we begin tonight, especially with us being here at the National Museum of the American Indian, I want to take a moment to gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we gather tonight, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their homes in the region today. Really, really impressed with the beautiful turnout from all of you tonight. One of the special things about events like this is the chance to connect and gather and build and reinforce the community of people who really support and champion the cause of refugees and displaced people. And it is wonderful to gather with all of you tonight in celebration and recognition and affirmation of our shared humanity and the shared humanity of displaced people all over the world. We're so grateful for all of you who are willing to fight alongside us for the rights and the dignity and the well-being of people forced from their homes. Each of you who is here tonight contributes in ways large and small to advancing our work at Refugees International, and we're really, really deeply grateful for that. Before we get fully underway with the program tonight, I want to recognize some really special people who are here with us tonight. First, we owe a debt of gratitude to everyone who served on the host committee and helped organize the event tonight. And I'd like our host committee to please briefly stand and join me in thanking them and recognizing them for their work. We are also deeply appreciative of the many of you in this room who have supported our work at RI for years, in some cases for decades. Your shared commitment to the idea of a better future for displaced people really powers and enables and advances what we do every day, and we are hugely grateful for that. I also want to particularly recognize Elizabeth Galvin and Maureen White and Steve Ratner, who are the leading sponsors, for their generosity. We are so grateful for your support. And a special note of appreciation tonight for Elizabeth again and for Sarah Bacon. Both Sarah and Elizabeth have been absolute stalwarts on the Refugees International's board for many, many years. And after many years of helping share their guidance and their wisdom and their thoughtful leadership with the organization, they are now rotating off the board. And we are going to miss them enormously. This organization would not be where it is today. I mean, really would not be where it is today without the leadership of Sarah and Elizabeth. And so please join me also in recognizing and thanking them for their service. And of course, we gather tonight to celebrate the 45-year history of Refugees International. 45 years of working towards a future in which every displaced person has access to rights and refuge. And to that end, and we are joined by many, many people who have served in the organization in various roles over the years. We're joined tonight by many former staff and many former board members. And in particular, I want to shout out Eileen Shields West and Natasha Weiss, our former board chairs. As well as my predecessor, Eric Schwartz, our former president. All of you who are here who have served have done so much for the organization over the years. So many of the moments that are memorialized in the posters over there are really the fruit of your work. And so we're really grateful for that and always conscious that we stand on the shoulders of a lot of giants in this organization today. So as Refugees International enters our 45th year, I take a lot of hope and inspiration from the origin of the organization. And you can see a little more about this and see a really cool picture on one of the first of the posters over there. But as some of you know, we were founded in the late 70s by a woman named Sue Morton, who was living in Southeast Asia, working on humanitarian issues and a committed champion of refugees and humanitarian issues. And this was a time in Southeast Asia when millions of refugees were fleeing Vietnam, when refugees seeking to flee Cambodia were being pushed back into the killing fields of Cambodia by Thai border police. And those were really seminal moments for what became Refugees International, because those were moments that could not be solved through aid alone. Those were problems that needed to be resolved and addressed through policy and through advocacy and by holding governments accountable for their behavior. And that insight became the core of what evolved into Refugees International. And a few months after Sue had witnessed some of these things, she was joining her co-founder, Michael Morrissey, as well as Joan Baez, and leading a march from the Lincoln Memorial to the White House to call on President Carter to help save the refugees who were fleeing Vietnam by the hundreds of thousands in small boats and being stranded all over Southeast Asia in awful conditions. And to their surprise, President Carter came out and met them and promised to send the Navy to help rescue the refugees. And that was sort of the launch of what has then become Refugees International. And that recognition of the power of policy and government action to support the safety and the rights of refugees is really fundamental to what we have done in the 45 years since. Of course, ultimately, many of those Vietnamese refugees who have come to the US were saved and brought to safety, but have then brought enormous richness to this country and to American society as a result. And last year at our anniversary dinner for our 44th year, we recognized Ke Huy Quan, the Oscar-winning actor who came to the U.S. as a refugee from Vietnam as a young child, went on to have a brilliant movie career, and won the Oscar last year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. People like Ke, also people who are now in legislative leaders, serving in Congress, business leaders, all as a result of the United States taking a welcoming posture to people seeking safety. Refugees International has been blessed over the years to have other prescient leaders. Former RI President Ken Bacon had the foresight in 2009 to launch our climate displacement program. He recognized and connected the dots between climate displacement, or climate change and forced displacement long before the rest of the world did. And while we lost Ken far too soon, we still work every day to carry forward that legacy. Last year in December, Jocelyn Perry, who was our lead advocate for climate displacement, and Qiyamud Din, who you'll be hearing from later tonight, who is an Afghan refugee and climate activist, represented Refugees International at the COP28 climate negotiations in Dubai, and worked hard to make sure that the voices and the perspectives of displaced people were at the core of the climate negotiations. More recently, my predecessor, Eric Schwartz, helped to lay the groundwork for what would become the Refugee Fellows program, which we are celebrating here tonight, and which has connected us to amazing refugee leaders from around the world. And we are about to recruit the second cohort of refugee advocacy fellows to the organization later this year. That sort of history really makes us who we are today. RI occupies a unique space in the humanitarian landscape. Because we take no funding from governments and no funding from the UN, we are able to be fully independent advocates, operating both inside and outside of the humanitarian system, sometimes holding that system to account, sometimes pushing and saying the things that others cannot so easily say. And today that legacy is more important than ever. Much like 1979, the world is full of refugee and displacement challenges. And those challenges need to be addressed not just through aid, but also through policy, and addressed through advocacy. And we can see this in a place like Sudan, where RI has been ringing the alarm on growing famine and worsening atrocities. We are very proud that after we and other groups spent much of last year calling for the appointment of a special envoy on Sudan, the White House or the administration announced Tom Perriello to that role in late February. We've also been a leading voice calling on the United Arab Emirates to halt their illegal arms shipments to the rapid support forces that are conducting many of the atrocities in Darfur. And we were very gratified to see the U.S. echo that call in remarks that Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who, by the way, is a former advisory council member of RI, remarks that she made publicly in the Security Council this week, a very, very important step. We see this in Gaza and Israel, where RI has called out serious violations of international humanitarian law by both Hamas and by the government of Israel. Our advocacy on Gaza's famine, which has been fueled by some of those violations, has helped to bring that issue to the forefront of diplomacy on the crisis. And tonight, we again reiterate our call for a ceasefire and an unconditional release of all hostages, and we are very fervently hoping that the deal currently on the table will be accepted. We also see the importance of the work we do in crises that aren't always in the headlines. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, our team recently uncovered and documented a frightening surge in sexual violence related to the advance of the M23 militia, which is backed by Rwanda, and we have been working to highlight the M23's violence and also, importantly, and an example of something that sometimes we can more easily say than others, to really call out the fact that Rwanda is enabling some of that. We see it in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, another place where our work has uncovered and documented systematic sexual violence. We see it even here in the US. We have been helping to lead a Strange Bedfellows coalition over the past year of everything from major American business groups to faith groups to locally elected leaders to call for earlier labor access for asylum seekers. And that has gone from being kind of a gleam in the eye a year ago to now being a coalition with an enormous number of very prominent members that is working hard to bring that issue to the forefront of the immigration debate. None of this work would be possible without so many of you who are here in this room this evening, both as supporters of the organization and as champions of the wider cause. Your support and your belief that a better world is possible fuels what we do. I'm very pleased to say that tonight we're very close to hitting the $450,000 fundraising target that we've set. Many of you have already made generous contributions. If any others of you are moved to make a contribution or another contribution, you never know, you can do so. There is a QR code on the backs of your programs, and you can make a donation there. Now, we have an exciting rest of the evening planned. I will stop talking. You've been enjoying wonderful music earlier from Project Lucria, which is a global jazz fusion band from the DC region that draws on folk traditions from around the world. You'll be enjoying food tonight from Emma's Torch, a really great DC nonprofit that empowers forcibly displaced people to build careers in the culinary industry. And it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce my friend, author, journalist, human rights advocate, and longtime friend of Refugees International, Kati Martin, for the presentation of the Richard C. Holbrooke Award. Kati?
Good evening, dear friends. Thank you, Jeremy. It's such a pleasure to be back with all of you and to have a new cohort of supporters of this all-important cause. It's actually never been more important than it is today for reasons that I don't need to tell this group, but it is wonderful to be affiliated with Refugees International. It's one of the many gifts that Richard Holbrooke left me. He was, as many of you know, a longtime board chair of Refugees International, and only left that post to negotiate the end to the bloodiest war in Europe until the Ukraine war in Bosnia. So Richard, of course, negotiated the end to that terrible conflict in Dayton, and with the Dayton Accords ended that conflict. But Refugees International was always very dear to him, and so I've tried to, in a very small way, continue that tradition. It's deeply moving to me that that you, Refugees International, have named this prize after Richard, and that you've asked me to present it every year. It's an award that goes to someone who demonstrates kind of Holbrookian courage and initiative, and of course we have many such leaders to choose from. It's never an easy decision, but you're about to meet the person, and I think you will agree that she is more than worthy of the prize. Richard really placed refugees at the core of his diplomacy, whether he was negotiating in Afghanistan, or of course in the Balkans, or in Africa. I had the good fortune to travel with Richard to 12 African nations when he was at the United Nations, and I was familiar with the plight of refugees. I'm one myself. My family fled Soviet tanks after the crushing of the Hungarian Revolution, and indeed my late husband was the child of refugees from Nazi Germany. So my experience of refugees was deep, but it was narrow. It was the life of a European refugee. But in my travels with Richard in Asia and in many African countries, when we were at the UN, I really came to know and befriend so many of the brave people who were forced to flee their homelands. And all I can tell you is that no one ever wants to leave their home. I can tell you that from personal experience. But Richard placed their plight at the core of his diplomacy. His diplomacy was really about one human at a time. And forgive me for saying this, but I find it rather tragic that diplomacy seems to have taken a back seat today in our policy making. And although I applaud Secretary of State Blinken's efforts, I would like to see more diplomacy in the regions where it would most benefit. Obviously, Gaza and Ukraine. We need a diplomat who is all in and willing to stay in the region until the guns are silent, the way Richard did. Richard would be very, very proud of the job that Jeremy is doing and of the role, the ever-expanding role that Refugees International is playing, and in the world of, as Jeremy noted, in the world of humanitarian and aid-giving groups, RI really occupies a very special niche. And I'm also on the board of the International Rescue Committee, and I must say that those two organizations are really the gold standard. And so your continued support of this small but absolutely vital organization is so important. So please do continue to support us, because very sadly, it's the problem is growing and expanding, and we all have to do our share in making it a concern, a daily concern, and a humane one. And unfortunately, some of the rhetoric that we hear these days is the opposite of humane. The Holbrooke Prize winner this year is going to an organization that deals every day with that very problem, and it is called Humane Borders. And you are about to meet the lady who, for many of the refugees who have journeyed through the most treacherous routes to reach our southern border. This is the first face that they will see and that you will understand is the perfect welcome to our country. Humane Borders is based in Tucson, and it was founded in 2000 with a mission to save lives and make that border humane. It's become a much tougher challenge in recent days, but with the support of a remarkable group of volunteers, Humane Borders operates in several dozen water stations in the Arizona borderlands, and actually prevents deaths from dehydration and exposure in that rugged desert land. Last year, Humane Borders expanded their work and mobilized hundreds more volunteers. And because the numbers just keep growing and expanding. So let me call to the stage Dora Rodriguez and Jean O'Mara, who were key to providing aid to thousands of displaced people and from all over the world, and providing water, snacks, warmth, and above all, humanity. Look at this smile of Dora. Come on up, Dora. So it is my great pleasure and honor to present you, Dora, with the Richard C. Holbrooke Prize, and thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of everyone in this room. Thank you. I'm gonna put this here. Knock 'em dead.
Well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for your kind introduction. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Jeremiah, thank you so much. He is the president of the Refugee International Support and staff of Refugee International. And distinguished guest, what an honor is to join you in this important event. On behalf of Humane Borders, we are delighted to be with you tonight to accept the Richard C. Holbrooke Award. What an honor. Thank you. Thank you. The recognition means so much to a small but mighty team that works almost a quarter of a century to save lives in the Arizona desert. So I was asked to play with this. Oh, it's there. So that's me in 1980, being carried by a border patrol. So I know from my own experience the challenges and trauma that refugees face on their journey. In 1980, I was among a group fleeing a civil war in my home country, El Salvador. We crossed the U.S. border of Oregon Pipe, National Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument in Arizona. Suddenly, overcome by heat and dehydration, 13 people died around me. I was among of the ones that survived. So the teen girl, you see, it's me. And I had dedicated the rest of my life to do this work, to welcome people in our borderlands for almost 40 years now. So fast forward to 2023, there is something beautiful about putting water for people who will likely never meet, we will never meet. Humane Borders continues its mission of preventing death by putting out water in Arizona's killing fields, places miles north of a border that now is the deadliest land crossing in the world. So since Humane Borders began keeping record of migrants' death in the year 2000, a collaboration with the Pima County Medical Examiner, almost 4,200 migrants have died. Some are still unidentified, many others go missing and never are found. So the red dots that you see, it's people that have been missing, and I wear my red dot always, in honor to them. In the spring of 2023, migration patterns change very dramatically for us. Much of the southern U.S. border experienced a surge of people traveling not only from Mexico and Central America, but from all over the world. Bangladesh, India, North Africa, China, Russia. About half of the asylum seekers are families with small children. That's one of our volunteers. At Oregon Pipe, the Border Patrol was quickly overwhelmed as 400 and 1,200 people a day crossed in remote part of the desert with no food, water, or shelter. Temperatures climb over 100 degrees in the summer and into 30s in winter. People doesn't think that the desert gets cold, but it snows sometimes in our mountains. Border Patrol says, often in the freezing rain, help from Border Patrol was hours or even days away to come and get people to safety. Humane Borders jump in setting up 6 water stations near the wall within 24 hours, while water is our primary mission. Our volunteers help in other ways, providing snacks, shade, cooling, and emotional support for hungry, thirsty, tired, and often injured people. We cool pregnant women in our truck. Our volunteers bandaged feet gave us a cloak smiles from small children. We wanted to be welcoming because many times it's the first people they see. So we want to tell them welcome. So leading the effort in Oregon Pipe is my incredible, amazing, good friend. I call him brother in the fight, in the good fight. Jean, would you please stand up? Thank you. Along with the team and a couple dozen volunteers, Jean ensured Humane Borders was at the wall every day until the crisis got better. Humane Borders performed this work in addition to continue traditional water runs in remote areas and the Sonoran Desert. So we moved to Yuma, Arizona. Today, Humane Borders continue to adapt to changing needs in Arizona. This month, we expanded to Yuma 4 hours west of Tucson with a new water station. We're currently seeking permits for a series of stations there. This is the area where I most present a couple times a week, and it's the most unforgiving terrain where people is left by smugglers, the organized crime, and any time of day or night, and it doesn't matter how the climate is, they're left alone. And we are there present, making sure that they have a bottle of water, that they have food, that they have people who will be there to protect them. Because we're not only dealing with the climate, we're not only dealing with the high numbers of people coming seeking safety, but as a volunteers, we're also dealing with people who doesn't like us, and they think the worst out of us. And this is the right groups that have their own ideas, and they come and harass us and harass our people coming into the United States. So we have to work with those challenges too. But I'll stop. And let me see what is there. This is the town of Sasabe, Arizona, where people is being dropped any time of day or night. People walks about 22 miles to present to Border Patrol. They're not hiding, they are seeking safety, and they're asking for us to help. So thank you deeply for this award that honors the memory of Richard Holbrooke, an outstanding humanitarian, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Clements, and I'm the Deputy High Commissioner at the UN Refugee Agency, and I am absolutely delighted to be here, warmly congratulating Dora and Jean and Humane Borders for that incredibly moving testimony. I'm particularly pleased that I can be here with the invitation of Jeremy, and I have to say my life, my professional life, has flashed before my eyes in the last 90 minutes because I have run into old bosses, friends, colleagues, and even stepping down this little walkway here and seeing the picture of Lionel Rosenblatt. One of my first experiences with RI was, if you can believe it, back in 1992, I was seconded to UNHCR by the State Department, by the PRM, where I worked for 25 years. And Lionel Rosenblatt brought a team from RI to take a look at how the Bangladesh, host communities, the government, importantly UNHCR, was taking care of Rohingya refugees. And those were tense times in 1992. He had a lot of recommendations for us. And I have been on the receiving end of a whole lot of recommendations over the years, both in the US government, but also in UNHCR. And I'm really pleased to be here. RI is an important, hugely important institution. We've heard that. We heard it from Jeremy. We heard it from Kati. This is an organization that speaks truth to power. It is an organization that tries to level inequality. It tries to bring voice to those that should have their own voices to be able to relay, but doesn't often happen. And that, of course, we can take enormous pride in as all being very strong supporters of RI, but in this very tense, tenuous, fragile environment where record numbers of people, unfortunately, are fleeing for their lives from conflict, from persecution, the needs for protection, so acute around the globe. We need more voices like RI. So I'm very, very proud to be representing UNHCR tonight, but also this important institution. So thank you. But my brief time here is going to be very brief because I have the pleasure of introducing your next presenter, Emmanuel Manu Pong, who is a choreographer and importantly has used her personal history to weave the art straddling culture, background, and history. And when people are forced to flee, what they bring with them is their past. What they bring with them are their skills, and they bring that history into their current life. And through her work and the work of her students and others who have benefited from her incredible work, she has challenged questions about identity, about past, about present, and I think really enriched both the societies that she has been part of, but also brought that culture into her current life. And so please join me in welcoming Manu to the stage to present our next award.
"25 years ago, on April 18, 1999, Larry Thompson of Refugees International called me at home in New York. My mother, Yvette Pierpaoli, and donors David and Penny McCall had run into some trouble during a reconnaissance mission in Kosovo. He would keep me posted. I did not worry too much. My mother had faced many difficult situations before. She had been among the last people to leave Phnom Penh, fleeing the advance of the Khmer Rouge. She had outsmarted the Chinese mafia who threatened her business in Bangkok. She had single-handedly set up hospitality centers in Guatemala and Bolivia to welcome street children. I was used to and looked forward to listening to her improbable stories when she returned from her missions for RI. They had run out of gas in the desert, and the radio battery had died. But an acquaintance miraculously drove by just in time to rescue them. Another time in Guinea with the first RI's president, Lionel Rosenblatt, they had cleared every military checkpoint at a record speed. The tunic she had on, purchased at the market a few days earlier, showed patterns that bestowed special authority on the wearer. Yvette definitely had a guardian angel. But Larry's second call confirmed the worst. The car driving David, Penny McCall, Yvette, and their Albanian driver back from Tirana to Kukës had fallen into a ravine. Yvette's funeral took place in the village of Servier-la-Baume in the south of France, where she lived. The church was packed with friends from around the world. Lionel Rosenblatt had arranged for her to be brought back from Kosovo. He was our pillar, stoic and supportive, even though he was devastated. Also present were French shepherds from the Cevennes, who a few years earlier had traveled to Mali with Yvette to meet with Tuareg shepherds. Their exchange had been as much about herding as it had been about safeguarding oral cultures. The writer David Cornwell, aka John le Carré, paid a sensitive and humorous tribute. Yvette, he reminded us, had experienced firsthand what it meant to be afraid, humiliated, hungry, and homeless. And this intimate knowledge fueled her relentless engagement for the cause of refugees worldwide. To her, it was personal. We chose to honor Yvette's memory by illegally burying her ashes in the garden and planting a tree. This act was not just a memorial, but a symbol of her enduring legacy. A few years earlier, under a palaver tree in Burundi, Yvette had orchestrated meeting between Hutu and Tutsi wise men, initiating a dialogue for peace. Today, we celebrate Yvette's legacy with the McCall-Pierpaoli Award. My mother would have been so proud of what this organization is doing to fight for rights and refuge for all. She would have been thrilled about this year's McCall-Pierpaoli Humanitarian Awardees, who carry on the great work. I am proud to present to you this year's International Refugee Fellows. María Diez is the co-founder and president of Coalición por Venezuela, the largest network of Venezuelan civil society organizations. A lawyer by training, Ana María practiced criminal and child protection law in Venezuela, alongside with her role as a humanitarian protection officer for an NGO before she was kidnapped and tortured by the Venezuelan National Police for her human rights activism. She was forced to flee. Alaa El-Gaile is an advocate for women's rights and education. She is committed to empowering refugees and promoting social justice. She is originally from Sudan. Qiyamud Din Ikram is a climate, migration, and youth climate advocate. He is originally from Afghanistan. Ali Johar is a refugee and statelessness activist. He co-founded the Rohingya Human Rights Initiative, a community-based support and campaign organization. He is originally from Myanmar. Wafa Ali Mustafa is a Syrian activist and advocate for people forcibly disappeared by the Syrian regime. She co-founded the Free Syria's Disappeared Coalition, which fights for freedom and safety for all of Syria's disappeared. And Farhad Shamo Roto is a survivor of the 2014 Yazidi genocide and the founder of Voice of Yazidis, an organization that advocates for the right of Yazidis. Each of them has demonstrated extraordinary leadership in global advocacy, rooted in their lived experience of forced displacement. For years, they have led, organized, and pioneered solutions to their communities' issues. Their expertise and perspective have significantly deepened and expanded Refugees International work. My mother would have adored each and every one of you and the tremendous work you are doing in the world. Please join me in honoring our incredible awardees. But first, turn your attention to the screens to hear from 4 of the fellows who are not able to be here in person tonight.
Hi, my name is Alaa.
I am Farhad Shamo Roto.
My name is Wafa Ali Mustafa.
And I'm Ali Johar.
Thank you, Manu, for the wonderful introduction. We hope you are all having a great evening together.
We wish we could have been there with you in person tonight.
In fact, it is because of our status as refugees that many of us are not able to access visas and be there in person to celebrate this moment together.
But we send our warm regards and thanks to all of you for gathering today to celebrate Refugees International, an organization working to advance rights and refuge for all.
I want to express my gratitude for Refugee International for their crucial role in amplifying the voice of refugee leaders, including myself. Receiving the McCall-Pierpaoli Award is a recognition of a collective effort for those who strive for a more just and a compassionate world. It is a responsibility to continue advocating for the right and the dignity of refugees worldwide.
Yvette Pierpaoli and the McCalls lived a life of service, offering lessons to all of us about what it means to advocate and defend the rights of all people. Their lives offers us inspiration, and these awards give us determination to continue this work.
We are honored to be recognized with this prestigious award and humbled by the acknowledgement of our own legacy as the first cohort of Refugees International's fellowship program.
Joining Refugees International family was the first time I felt included in an organization that understands our struggles and stands with us.
The fellowship provided me with invaluable tools to amplify my fight for freedom, justice, and dignity. It was a journey of learning, listening to new voices, and elevating my own.
During my fellowship with Refugee International, I have been profoundly impacted by their dedication to creating a more welcoming and respecting world for those seeking refuge.
We have a long way to go. Our people are on move, seeking stability. We need to be aware that we need to continue working, advocating, and defending the rights of all people.
The McCall-Pierpaoli Award is not just a huge recognition, but also an encouragement and inspiration to keep doing this work.
This award is both an honor and a call to action for me and for you, urging all of us to intensify our efforts and mobilize together in the pursuit of justice and liberation.
I truly wish we could have all be with you in person today, but such is the reality of life for refugees, and through it, we embrace adaptation, resilience, and accepting of the unexpected. Yet despite the challenges, our spirit remains strong, driving by hope for a better future.
Thinking about the future is a privilege for countless refugees. I aspire and work for a world where such a privilege is everybody's right, ensuring every individual can look ahead with dignity and hope.
Thank you all for coming to celebrate this event.
We leave you with a verse, an appeal for the future.
In shadows we tread,
Yet hope's light still shine ahead.
Together we rise.
together we rise.
Together we rise.
Let us continue to build a future where refuge is not a privilege, but a right.
Let's give another round of applause for these incredible individuals. My name is Alaa El-Gaile, and I have the honor of serving on Refugee International's board of directors, now in my third term, 9th year. The work of Refugees International, this award and our awardees resonate with me personally. As a Cambodian refugee myself, tonight's dinner celebrates RI's 45th anniversary, founded in 1979 at the very height of what was then known as the Indo-Chinese refugee crisis. While the decision to establish RI was made in late June of that year, it was on July 19th, 45 years ago, that RI initiated its first large-scale public advocacy action on behalf of refugees. On that date, then Executive Director Diane Lawson, along with one of RI's founders, Michael Morrissey, published a full-page ad in the Washington Post addressed to US senators and representatives. The advocacy letter called for an increased support for Indo-Chinese refugees, outlining recommendations for life-saving action. Later that evening, crowds of people huddled in front of the Lincoln Memorial at a concert featuring Joan Baez and rallied support for resettling Indo-Chinese refugees. In attendance were some 10,000 people, including Sue Morton and Michael Morrissey, founders of RI, and Diane Lawson, then the first executive director. And many of our other friends of RI were among the hundreds who joined a candlelit march to the north side of the White House, urging then President Jimmy Carter to assist the refugees fleeing Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. The humanitarian situation in Southeast Asia was dire following the victory of communist forces. Outflows of refugees from Vietnam in particular escalated dramatically in the months leading up to July 1979 due to the nationalization of the private sector in what had been South Vietnam, along with abuses against religious communities and practices designed to drive out ethnic Chinese. So-called boat people were dying at sea in very large numbers, and the human tragedy unfolding required swift action. As the leaders of RI and other protesters approached the White House singing Amazing Grace, they were surprised to see a door open and President Carter walk out to greet demonstrators from the South Lawn. He told Baez and the crowd that he had ordered the US 7th Fleet to rescue the boat people and bring them to safety. Quote, "We can't let your people die," he said. He promised to a group of marchers who were of Southeast Asian descent, and President Carter was true to his word. Thank you, Refugees International, for your advocacy then and these past 45 years, and for the next 45 years. At a moment in US history when political leaders have vilified refugees and sought to impose policies informed by fear and ignorance about the contributions of new Americans, the events around the founding of Refugees International offer a different lesson. It is a critical lesson about humanitarian leadership based on US values and US interests in a diverse world. We who were saved cannot forget and must carry forward RI's legacy. Which brings me to our incredible Refugee Fellows, winners of tonight's McCall-Pierpaoli Award, our highest honor. At this time, I would like to ask María Diez and Qiyamud Din Ikram, two of Refugees International's inaugural Refugee Fellows who could be with us tonight, to come to the stage. Out. Okay, María and Qiyamud Din, thanks so much for being here with us tonight. Let me start with María. I'll turn to you first. You were a lawyer before you were forced to leave Venezuela, and you're now the head of Coalición por Venezuela, based in Spain. Can you tell us a bit more about your work and the challenges you're tackling with your community?
Sure, that's a very good question to start, especially since I cried my heart out. So thank you for that question. Well, actually, seeing just the two of us out of 6 refugees, and I mean fellows in this, speaks of how things are going in the world. So it is a huge challenge. But specifically for us as Venezuelans, you can add another layer of challenge, which is that we are not fully recognized as refugees. We have been given like 8 different categories. So this just adds extra layers of vulnerabilities. So in the context of the biggest displacements in the whole region, that's just challenging. So good thing is that we in Coalición, as fast as the crisis, the Venezuelan crisis rise, just as fast we came together to work as a network. So we have been around just for the past 5 years. We are an organization of 5 years old. But right now, we are the largest network of NGOs led by Venezuelan migrants and refugees. And that's powerful because it's 106 NGOs in 22 countries. So you can place it from Canada to Patagonia and also in 5 countries in Europe. But pay attention that it's 106 teams working together with same standards and also with shared goals. So that speaks of what we are doing and also the amount of work and the crisis that we are facing.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you. Qiyamud Din, you're a climate advocate and a refugee from Afghanistan, a country that's facing severe dual climate and rights crisis. You were just with us in COP28 in December in Dubai as one of the very few refugees represented at the conference. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience and the work there that you were doing?
Thanks for having me. My name is Qiyamud Din Ikram, and I'm from Afghanistan. Growing up, I witnessed the devastating combination of climate change, instability, political instability, conflicts, humanitarian crisis, human rights violation in the country for the last few decades that displaced many, including myself, fueled my passion for climate justice. As you know that Afghanistan is one of the countries hit hardest by the impacts of climate change. And we are least equipped to handle this. For example, different climate disasters like recurrent droughts, conditions, events, and frequent floods, as well as water scarcity, disrupt many lives. And these problems worsen with the existing humanitarian crisis, food security, conflicts, political instability, and creating a perfect storm of displacements. And that was the reason I have started studying climate change and disaster and started my work with different youth-led organizations voluntarily for this cause, working with different international organizations and UN agencies, both inside Afghanistan and outside of Afghanistan, on this issue. And just to understand climate change and disaster, and to understand how they cause displacement, this has allowed me to collaborate with passionate individuals and also to find solutions for this climate displacement. As you mentioned, there were few refugees represented at the recent climate conference COP28 in Dubai, and I was fortunate one of them. Being a refugee at COP was not about to attend the meeting, in the event, but it was to make sure voices of the most impacted people by the climate disasters, as well as from the countries that has been ignored from the last 3-4 years, like Afghanistan. So that was an incredible opportunity for me. And also, as you all know, that climate change is a global challenge, and it requires all of us to work together. And by investing in sustainable development and prioritizing the most vulnerable, we can build a future where climate displacement is a thing of the past. You just imagine a world where everyone has the chance to live safely and to live in a healthy environment. And I think this is what I'm fighting for.
It is, absolutely. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
Anna Maria, you were one of the first, you were part of RI's first ever cohort of this incredible fellowship program, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, there were 1,000 applicants and 6 were picked, so it's harder than Harvard by 10 times. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience with Refugees International and what it meant to you?
It was incredible. In one word, incredible. I was one of the few luckies that managed its way into RI for this fellowship. And I know how lucky I was to be part of this experiment that went well. Because I have this strong vocation for research, and I satisfied this within the fellowship, but also I did field trips. I also met these incredible people that otherwise I wouldn't have met, because we tend to gather just with our own people. And it gives me this new perspective of so many things that I was missing, but also on how to address key issues from the advocacy perspective, which is one of the keystones for Coalición. But on the other side, I felt fully included. I was part of the staff. I mean, I was in staff meetings, I was participating all over, my voice was heard. It was not just to fulfill a chair of displaced people, refugee, and so. No, I was part of the team. I was so part of the team that I want to share with you all a good story. I was struggling within my presidency to find some meetings with the Colombian government. Colombia is a border country with Venezuela, and with the past administration, they set the example of an incredibly humanitarian approach, with very, very close to the people. That could be a tragedy with no precedent. But the last administration of Colombia did an amazing job. But since President Petro took office, all spaces were shut down for civil society. And they were devenezuelanizing migration, quoting the director of migration from Colombia. And I was struggling with the main host country, with over 30 NGOs trying to provide solutions, trying to work with the government, and nothing was happening. It was going on for months. And I remember this field trip with Marta Guerrero. She's somewhere. From the Labor Market Access Initiative with RI. And she managed to open so many doors, and it was like, this is our fellow from Refugees International, but also she is the leader of this NGO, and she's now here. So pay attention to her. And after that, and thank you to the whole incredible team of RI, guidance, so many doors were open, and today we participate in so many levels in decision-making, but also proposing solutions, sustainable solutions for the Venezuelan crisis, but also other crises. And this is joint advocacy. This is teamwork. And so many people were engaged in this. Jeremy was all in, Harding, 24/7. I bother him so much. I know, sorry, not sorry. And Marta, Yael, Rachel, so many talented people. So I was part of the staff. And that made a change, not just for me as a fellow, but for my organization. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you. No, I think the lesson here is that the combination of Refugee Fellows and RI's credibility allows for an incredible outcome. What about you, Qiyamud Din?
Actually, being chosen for Refugees International first cohort was a huge honor. So it's like a ground-taking initiative that empowers the emerging educators like me to make a difference. So the fellowship was not just only to provide the trainings. It gave us mentorship, resources. Personally, I gained a lot of networking with the similar-minded people that are passionate for climate justice. So, to me, it was a great opportunity. And one of the meaningful and powerful experience was to take part in climate conference, because I was one of the few people from Afghanistan. Afghanistan was completely ignored. We were only, I think, 4, 5, or 6 people there independently, and so I was representing RI. So RI, I'm very grateful to the fellowship, to the whole team, because they have given me the opportunity to advocate, to do the advocacy for climate change, migration, and displacement issues. But they have also given me the opportunity to do some advocacy for Afghanistan as well, because I was having the opportunity to directly discuss with the policymakers, directly talk to the media, youth groups, and I was sharing what is happening in Afghanistan in terms of climate change and what we need and what are the opportunities that is lacking, we are missing. So I think, to me, it was one of the incredible experience that I have had while representing RI, while advocating for climate displacement in general, and also more importantly, to represent my country, because that is what it was missing. So I think it was an incredible journey. So I'm more thankful to the RI team as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Anna Maria, what's next for you? And what is it that you want to make sure this audience understands about the challenges ahead for you and your community?
Dinner is next, because I left my chicken there unattended. But besides that, a few things. Just a few things that I want you all to keep in mind. First, we are near 8 million broken families all over the world. So please, please be empathetic with those you don't know, those arriving in the country, especially if those are Venezuelans. We don't know how to emigrate. We are heartbroken. This is new for us. Historically, Venezuela was a host country for everyone. I am the daughter of a Spaniard that fled the Franco's dictatorship. My half-brothers are sons of a Portuguese. So we were a host country. We don't know how to do this. So we are heartbroken all over the world. So please, please be empathetic. Second, it is worth to invest in refugee leaders that make the difference. We have proven, and there is no PhD in the world that can replace, I always forget the word.
The lived experience.
Not replace. That can replace lived experience. I am really bad at English, by the way. You can notice. So there is no PhD in the world that can replace that. So it's worth to invest in refugee leadership that makes a difference. Together we rise, remember. And lastly, the Venezuelan crisis is not over, has changed. It is a crisis of integration. But we are still leaving the country. We are crossing borders. Humane borders attend so many Venezuelans, we were talking about that. And we will continue moving across borders until something's changed. And that something is to find sustainable solutions for democracy for Venezuela, but also integration. All we want is a place we can call home. And we want to contribute to that home. So let's find solutions, and if you want to contribute, we are always open to new collaborations in Coalición por Venezuela, because integration actually is the core of the work we do. And I want to thank you all for being here, because it showed so many commitment for you, for people that, like me, is trying to make a change.
All right. Well, thank you. And I realize we're standing between you and dessert. So, Qiyamud Din, what about you? What are your aspirations personally and in terms of your work on climate and displacement?
Yeah, thank you. On a personal and professional, I strive for a continuous learning, growth and development, being as an educate. My experience empowers me to inspire others for an equitable world. In my work, professional life, my vision is a future where we proactively address the climate displacement. We know that the challenges are immense, but I have immense hopes as well. So we can achieve this future if we work together. And by harnessing collecting the power of our voices, amplifying those of marginalized communities, making the leaders accountable, I think we can make a difference. You just imagine a world where climate displacement is not like a life sentence, but a stepping stone for a brighter tomorrow. I think we have a lot of potential being as a refugee, and I think this is what we can give, to provide opportunities for them to integrate them, and also to provide opportunities for them that they should contribute for what they are doing, and they have this potential that they can make a difference to the society as well. So my last word would be that let's build it together. This is what being as a climate advocate, I'm always talking about climate change. So climate change, we cannot do alone. It's just like a global challenge, so we must be together, and let's build it together. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you both so much for this incredible conversation, and I hope we can continue onwards after this as well. And I really want to give you both hugs here. Thank you. All right, it's been such an honor and a privilege to be here with such esteemed awardees and attendees. Refugees International places humans at the forefront and recognizes the unique value and worth of every single person. Our powerful advocacy centers humanity, and I am grateful to all of you in this room for the many ways you support us in that work. We are grateful to you, and we hope that you'll stick with us for a very long time. For those locals, stay tuned for more information about our reception on World Refugee Day, June 20th. And don't fear, if you want to make a first, second, or third donation, you can still do so by scanning the QR code at your tables. Now, before I invite you to join us in the reception area for dessert, and an opportunity to continue mingling, I'd like to ask that we all raise our glasses. Of course, I don't have one, but I raise our glasses here to the incredible 45 years of Refugees International. Here is to every one of you for making our work possible, and here is to the work left to be done, which we will do together. Cheers and thank you.